Show. I'm your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Star Wars Aftermath Life Debt by Chuck Wendig. And this is from Del Rey Publishers, which is Random House, which is Penguin. Del Rey. That's all you need to worry about. Um, so, Aftermath Life Debt. I'm a little late on this one. It came out last year, and the next book is coming out shortly. But better late than never. This is book 2 in the Aftermath trilogy by Chuck Wendig, and this one follows our characters from the first book. We've got Nora Wexley and her son Temmin, and Sinjir, and Jas, and Mr. Bones, my favorite, the battle droid that's been reprogrammed by Temmin, and he's a little crazy. The battle droid is Mr. Bones. So all these characters from the first book, they're now basically a team working for the New Republic, and they're hunting down war criminals, ex-Empire officers and such, hunting them down, bringing them back to basically face the music. And of course, the white whale for them is Grand Admiral Sloane, who is their main protagonist in the first book, which was just Aftermath. So they're doing this, working for the New Republic, and Princess Leia calls Nora in and gives her a special mission off the books, essentially. Han Solo has gone missing, and Leia wants Nora and her crew to find him and help him if he needs help. So that's basically the setup for this book. Now, right off the bat, I get this out of the way every time I review something from Chuck Wendig. I'm a big fan of his stuff, not just his Star Wars stuff, but all his other stuff. But he does have a writing style that I think you need to get used to. He writes in present tense, and he typically writes with very short, punchy sentences, which, I mean, if you look, I don't know if you can't really see much of anything there, but I mean, there's some decent sized paragraphs. He's getting a little more verbose, perhaps, but his style does take some getting used to, but I really think it's worth it. I love his stuff, and I really enjoyed this. If you've read the first one, there's some big differences, I think, between the feel of this book and the first book. Most of the action, there's a bunch of interludes in the first book. There are interludes in this one as well. But most of the main story in the first book takes place essentially on one planet. This is much more far-reaching, a little more epic, I suppose you could say. To me, for those of you who miss the old, the books that are now called Legends, that are no longer even unofficially canon. They're just absolutely not canon, as they say. To me, this felt a lot more like those other books, the other Star Wars books. Not that that matters one way or the other. I'm just sort of putting it out there for you. And that's because it really, there's a greater scope to this story. They're going all over the galaxy, looking for Han Solo and doing their work, our great group of characters, and I love these characters. And you have more of the characters from the movies. As I said, obviously, Princess Leia, Han Solo, Chewbacca, Admiral Akbar, Mon Mothma. So, a lot more interaction with characters from the movies. They're a bigger part of the story here. I mean, we saw a little bit of them in the first book in some of the interludes. Much bigger part here. There are, as I said, there are interludes, which are interesting. I like them. I like seeing some of the other things that are going on. There's one in particular that really interests me. I get these adult full size. I don't know how to describe them. I get these books. I don't get like the young adult books. So I don't have every Star Wars book that's written. I don't have every Star Wars book that's part of the new canon. I don't read the comics. So I don't know if this one particular interlude is being expanded on anyplace else. But it's takes place, I believe, it's Tatooine, and there's a guy that has Boba Fett's armor. Um, I believe it's Boba Fett's armor. I'm not sure he comes out and says it, but it's pretty obvious, it seems. Um, but he's sort of appointed himself the sheriff of Mos Eisley, I think. Um, and so we have an interlude with this character and some stuff going on, and I find it really interesting, and I'd love to know more of the story. So if anybody knows what I'm talking about and knows that another author has done a book with this, or if it's in any of the comic books, please let me know. Um, but so there's that, the interludes, but the main story, as I said, a lot of stuff going on. Um, really expands on Grand Admiral Sloane, excuse me, and um, the man that she's working for. There's a lot of politics and behind the scenes stuff going on, and twists and turns and backstabbing and secret plots and all sorts of craziness in this sort of bid for the Empire to rebuild itself. And the guy that Sloane is working for, is he is his plan the best? Is he really working to rebuild the empire? Does he want to make something else? Um, is he going to be Snoke? Snoke? Excuse me, Snoke. Um, we don't know who Snoke is from the movies yet, so it could be a character from the books. I don't know. I would love to talk to Chuck Wendig and um, ask him how much inside information he has. I don't necessarily want him to. I wouldn't want him to give me that information, but I'd love to know. When he's writing these things that tie into that are canon now and tie into everything else. How much info he's given, how much he knows about the movies that are coming up and all that. But anyway, I've digressed way too much in this review. So yes, very very grand scale here. A lot of space battles and ground battles, and really, it. I really enjoyed Wendig's first book, but this feel and I thought it had a Star Wars feel to it, but this feels even more like Star Wars in my opinion, simply because of it's bigger. It's not in one location. I do love the characters. I love Jas. I love Sinjir, and we get a little more of Sinjir as just his character, more development for him. Nora Wexley is Nora Wexley. I don't know that there's a huge amount of growth for her or for Temmin. Mr. Bones is slightly different. He's been reprogrammed a little bit, tweaked. Well, there is character stuff with these people, and Wedge Antilles is in here, and so there are nice character moments, but I don't know that I don't think we learn any more about the characters necessarily, like their backstory. But I think we got it all in the first book. Not a bad thing. I like the character moments that are in here. And we do learn about the mysterious figure that Grand Admiral Sloane, excuse me, is working for. We just got a hint of him in the first book. We learn a lot more about him in this book, and it definitely there was a more definite ending in the first book. It did leave some things open, obviously, but it was sort of, okay, here it is. This main part of the story has ended. Here's some little things, some little threads that are going to carry on. This book is much more open-ended, which I guess to me is very much like the original trilogy of movies. You had you could have stopped with A New Hope. I hate calling it that. I'm old school because I'm old. I just like to call it Star Wars, but A New Hope for those of you who need that designation. You could have stopped there. Obviously, there's some unanswered questions, but it's got a pretty definitive ending. You know, the Death Star's blown up, they're getting their medals, everybody's celebrating. Um, and that's kind of how ish the first one feels. Um, and then, of course, in Empire Strikes Back, you really have a lot of stuff that's left open. You gotta have that third movie, because there really isn't much of a definitive ending to Empire Strikes Back, and that's how this feels. There are a lot of things left open. Uh, it's yeah, I'm not going to go into it, but a lot of very interesting things. I even have sort of a crazy, crazy idea how these could tie into the new trilogy. I doubt it's going to be the case, but I think it would be fantastic if they could set it up in these books and have it be such a major thing in the movies. That would be incredible to me. But I don't think that's going to be the case. But there is something in here that kind of made me think, wow, wouldn't it be wild if this turned into that in the movies? I suppose I should mention, for those who don't know, this would have been a little better at the beginning. These do take place. Aftermath takes place immediately after Return of the Jedi, and this takes place shortly after Aftermath. There's a timeline for the stories in the front of the book, or at least a list in order. I don't think it gives us the time. Yeah, in the old books, the ones that are now legends, they actually gave you everything was based on A New Hope. So if you looked at the timeline, it might say 100 years before A New Hope, and then you might have something that said 5 years after A New Hope. This lists the stories in order, but it doesn't give us actual times. So, I guess if The Force Awakens is supposed to be 40 years after Return of the Jedi, then the events of these books are probably 39 years before Force Awakens. So, I don't know. Maybe I guess it depends on exactly how long it's been between the first two books and how long it is between this book and the next one. Though I don't see any real gap in time between this one and the next one. The way this one ends, I think it's gonna have to continue immediately after. There is some time between the first one and this one. So anyway, a little rambly this time, but I really enjoyed this. As I said, might take you some time to get used to Chuck Wendig's style, but it's well worth it. Very epic Star Wars story. Wonderful characters. I really like these characters. Even after the third book is finished, I wouldn't mind seeing Chuck write more with these characters. Or, I suppose another writer could take over or not necessarily take over, but use Chuck's characters in other stories. Again, especially like Sinjir and Jas. I love those two characters. And Mr. Bones. So I guess I'll jump to the rating. Hopefully this will show up on screen here. My lighting isn't always great. Yeah, see, I got to kind of turn it so you can see it. I give it 4.5. This is a half over here. 4.5 lightsabers. That's supposed to be Darth Maul's. Notice it isn't all the way, so that indicates half, I guess. So 4.5 out of 5 lightsabers. So I really enjoyed this. And by the way, I didn't check colors. Like this one's purple. I'm not sure that handle goes with a purple lightsaber or that handle goes with a green one. The only ones I know are the red ones. Kylo Ren's and Darth Maul's. But so please don't yell at me if I have the colors wrong. But 4.5 out of 5 lightsabers. Really enjoyable. I know there are people that hate the new canon, but I loved it. I thought it was great. Again, fan of Chuck Wendig, so pick it up. I'll have a link for it, and there might even be a pre-order link for the paperback, since like I said, the third book comes out soon-ish. I would assume then that this will be out in paperback if it's not already out. I haven't looked for it because I already have it in hardback. But I'll have links for it in the description below for Amazon and probably Barnes and Noble, as I always do. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. If you know if that story on Tatooine with Boba Fett's armor is continued anywhere else, please let me know because I'd love to read that. I'm intrigued by it. If you want to discuss, I know a lot of people don't like the new canon. We can discuss it. I just ask that people be polite, and the comments are open to spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. Again, it's all about being polite. Please like, share, and subscribe. I think that covers it. So this has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.